All right, so now we're gonna do, I'm gonna show you how to remove this main seal. Okay, so I've already taken it out. I actually didn't have the camera on when I was doing this. But it's very simple if you understand how the seal is constructed. So this may differ between cars, but on this car, if you turn it around and look at the one that's going in, you'll look in there and you can see this metal ring that goes around the inside on this side. This ring makes it very difficult to try to puncture it and get a tool in there unless you're putting it in the right space. And you can see where that ring is with these little cutouts right there. So the simplest way is to simply go on the inner side. You can see where I did it before, but I'll choose a new spot. Basically right here. And when you're on the car, you're going to want to get your hand right up next to the tip of your tool so that you're not going to slip or go too far. So you get this in here, it's going to insert very easily. You focus on pushing outwards. Sorry, my hands are greasy, so I'm going to have to move my hand back. There. Now, it's flipped in right on that thing. And if you look at the other side, it's not doing anything. Look at how little it's going in there. It hit the side of this wall, which also has a metal ring. Okay? So once you've got your tool under that lip, it's very simple to simply pry upwards. You really only probably have to get it in one spot at this point, and you can just leverage it up. It's going to pop right out. Now look at the inside of this. It's not scored at all. Everything is completely fine on that. So no damage to any of the sealing surfaces. We just made a slight, basically, incision right here underneath that lip of ring. We went right up against the other outer metal ring and we pried outward. Literally takes 10 seconds. So now you know. So normally what leaks is the rear seal, and you definitely, while you're in here, replace it. However, a somewhat less common but often thing that leaks is, and something to inspect, is this carrier. So this whole thing is the carrier for the rear main seal. Now this thing will come off without having to drop the pan. A lot of people don't know that, but these bolts are 10 millimeters. The torque setting on these are very, very low. I mean, it's almost like finger tight. It's around about the order of 5 to 7 foot-pounds. So this is more or less finger tight plus just a little bit, maybe a quarter turn, something like that. But anyway, there's a gasket that runs along this face of it that meets up with the oil pan, and that can leak. And indeed, when I push on it a little bit, this has been wiped and been sitting here for quite a while, so there's a little bit of capillary action here happening where it seems like, because the engine hasn't run obviously since I pulled this, but there's still a little bit in this seal of moistness. I can tell the oil is right in there. This is where that's a little piece of the gasket that sticks out, and it is rock hard. It should not be hard. It should be supple. So the fact that that's hard means that when this comes off, it's going to look very brittle, basically like plastic, and it's probably just going to snap. All right, so I've been playing with this for a couple minutes, and just to see how to get this pried off, I took out the bolts. The top two are short, the bottom two are longer, and if you look in here really closely, like on these lower ones, you'll see a little sleeve. So this is a locating sleeve that puts it in the right position, because it has to be perfectly aligned so that the round rear main seal will seal correctly. And the way to get this out is, if you feel around here, you'll feel a little lip on the back, like right here in the corners, and over here, and then just above each one of these things. Now this is where a seal puller tool is kind of handy, because if you have this and you put this in like right about here, you'll get a little bit of leverage. This thing will pop right out. You do not have to mess with the gasket. I was afraid I was going to have to get in here and sort of cut into the gasket seal right here and to break the seal, because it was I was trying to pry with like a little nylon trim removal tool to be sure that I wasn't going to scratch anything, but it's really not necessary. You don't have to cut into this. You don't have to cut into the seal at the top either. You can just pry it out. I just very lightly pried with that seal puller tool on the sides, straight back. So you don't pry like outwards from the top or something where it's going to be crooked. You want to go straight back with it, and then it'll clear those little things, and we'll be able to move this off. And you can see got this like right like that in there, and once we get it from both sides and it clears that, then we can pull it off. Okay, and we can see that we've got some goop around the top and we've got some goop around the bottom. You'll be wanting to clean this off very carefully. Once you've wiped it down, you can very carefully scrape off any remaining stuff. I would use a nylon tool for that. You may want to clean it up even more with a little bit of high grit sandpaper, like a 600 or 800 or more higher grit, just to be sure that everything is completely clean, and then we can replace this gasket. Let's get it out into the light where we can see it a little bit better.
All right, so looking at it as you would on the car, the bolts are on the upper side. You can see that it's got this little gasket that goes out past these wings and around to the other side. Now, the part of the gasket broke off, and it's still on the car right here. But let's look at what this looks like. So the gasket fits into this little channel, and it's liberally spread with our gray RTV. I'm going to use black. Okay. And so you can tell that this has no compliancy whatsoever. Listen to this. Yeah. Rubber should not sound like that. Yeah. Parts of it, listen to this. Yeah, it's toast. So this is done for. And so you can see where the, this is probably the original. So you can see where the factory put it liberally around the wings and onto here. So what we'll do is we'll get this cleaned up, and then we'll be able to get the new one on. Now, the other thing is a small amount is around the top as well. So you want to put it around here, and here's where you can see these sleeves that are built into it. And I think what we'll do is actually put the gasket on here with some RTV and actually clamp it down. I've seen some good results from that. Clamp it down, let it cure for a while, and that will make insertion of this a lot more easy. This is definitely going to be less compressed. The new one's going to be less compressed than the old one, so putting it in and having it locate with these sleeves correctly may be a little bit challenging. We'll have to be putting it in and pressing down at the same time as it gets inserted. So that might be a little bit challenging given that there's a bunch of goopy mess on this edge. And so having this one be sealed already is probably for the best, so that your gasket is not all sliding around while you're trying to do 3 things at once. So let's get the new gasket, get this cleaned up, and get the new gasket on there. All right, so I took the seal, the new seal here, and put a small bead, basically like that, couple 3 millimeters of this ultra black. This is what I use typically on oil situations. It seems to work well. And got it clamped down so that this will cure. So the cure time on this, the partial cure time is an hour. So what you do is you leave this for an hour, and then we'll be able to put the rest of it on. And the way that's going to look is we're going to put a bead around the outside with this one, continue it all the way around this side as well. All right, so I've got a thin bead around the outside like this, and I'm going to put a bead on the lower lip of the actual oil pan as well. This helps also to lubricate it as you slide it in, which is important for it to go in straight. You don't want this gasket to roll or anything.
Okay, so the process for putting it in is you pick a side. You remember those little sleeves are on the lower bolts. So pick one side and get that one lined up. The other ones will be out of alignment. And what you want to do is, using a small clamp it down that wing. There's just enough room to use a small C-clamp. So for illustration purposes, this is how I had it set up. Had it clamped down on the little wing that sticks out there. And then once that was there, then I went to the other side and did the same thing. So I put the bolt in about just about one thread in, and then went to the other side and started clamping it down until I could see, you can kind of stick your head up in there, that it's lined up. Once it's lined up, then the other side is going to go in, and you can get that other bolt in and start threading it back and forth, seating it slowly into the against the engine. Now at the bottom, what you want to do is tap on it every once in a while with like a rubber mallet to kind of make sure that the bottom part is continuing to slide. It's under compression, so it's not going to want to slide too much, but the extra bead of sealant should help it slide in. Once you've got it a few turns, a few threads in there, then you can put the top bolts in and start tightening those, and then just kind of go in a crisscross pattern to get this seated. Once it's done, the carrier should be flush again with the bottom, with the oil pan. So all that should be flush. There may be just a tad of stuff squeezing out into this. If that's the case, you can reach in there with a small, like a nylon tool or something like that, and lightly get that out of the way, or you can wait for it to dry and it'll kind of peel off as well. So you can see here on the outside, on the top, that we've got a nice squeezed out part all the way around, and of course on the bottom side it's kind of a mess. What we'll do is we'll clean that up with a razor blade once it's had a chance to cure a bit, and we should be all set. Once you've done a final inspection of all this, if you did this part, and gotten rid of all the if there's any extra stuff, and you've got this lubed, you can gently insert this, and you can just kind of work it like this. The other thing you can use is a little extension, if I can reach it. There we go. You can take the end of the extension like this, and you place it over it, and that gives you a nice thing that's not going to push it too far.